Okay, so if you're watching this video, I'm about to do my introduction, introduce the one and only Simon Barthold, which if you don't know who Simon is, yeah, you've been living under a rock. So Simon, sit back and relax. I'll just do my intro and here we go. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast designed to help you feel, see and think differently about the podiatry profession. Before I introduce my amazing guest today, just give a shout out to Podium. That's Podium, podium.com. If you want to communicate better with your patients, get more Google reviews, and actually they have got a really cool chat box thing that you can put onto your website. Reach out to them and tell them that you heard about Podium on the Podiatry Legends podcast. And they've actually set up a landing page. Just go to podium, podium.com/podiatry legends. Fill in some details, a little video you can watch, and then you can chat to them afterwards. And if you're not interested, then you're not interested. Anyway, on to my amazing guest today. It is the one and only Simon Barthold. Now, I should put some cheering music in there, bit of some clapping in the background. Simon has been on before. His last episode is up in the 800s somewhere of downloads and listens. So, Simon, welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Tyson. Yeah, I'm waiting to see my downloads get up near Jonathan Smalls, but I think he's bolted. He's well in front. He's at the head of the pack, isn't he?
He is in front, but Louise Rini is right up his butt.
Wow.
What? Yeah. So Louise is not too far behind him. So I think Jonathan's starting to sweat. But Jonathan's been on 4 times, I think.
Is he really?
Yeah. He's a serial offender. Which being a serial offender on a podcast is a good type of serial offender to be.
I think so, yeah.
So today we are going to talk about something that I know you're passionate about. I know a lot of podiatrists are passionate about, is biomechanics. And I thought it'd be really cool to get a bit of a background and the story on Barthold biomechanics, how you came up. Well, what sort of got you involved in biomechanics in the first place, and how you've progressed that into a membership group, and the amount of bloody hard work that goes into keeping it operating. It's not a simple feat.
Yeah, it's not. No. It's actually not called Barthold Biomechanics anymore. It's called Barthold Clinical these days. And the reason we changed it is because when I first started Barthold Biomechanics, which was back in 2014, and Tyson, honestly, this started out because I was going through my computer one day and I thought, geez, I got a lot of crap on my computer. I ought to just package that up and put it on a website somewhere and see if people are interested. And I honestly thought I might get 5 or 10 people who were prepared to pay whatever we charge, $16 a month to look at this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we now got about 1,000 people who are looking at it all. So much to my surprise, there was something of interest there. But yeah, it really has evolved, and it went from being pretty much a pure podiatry site to now we have people in all sorts of different disciplines, everybody from pods to physios to orthopedic surgeons to medicos to technical retail and footwear, all sorts of different stuff. And Barthold Biomechanics morphed into Barthold Clinical, so it's a much broader platform now. We have a retail portal, you can buy stuff on it. But as you said, you look at this stuff, you look at online educational sites and you think, I could do that. That's a piece of cake. Just whack it up there and away we go. I said to you earlier when we were chatting that this is like a mythical beast that has to be fed every single day, otherwise it dies. And content's king. You have to put stuff up there. You've got to figure out what might be interesting to people who are paying their hard-earned money to be members. And that, for me, that's really the biggest challenge. And that's also led us down a different path where we now are judiciously inviting certain people to come on as, I guess, collaborators and partners with us as contributors to the website.
Okay.
So it's not always just me because that I run out of ideas, quite frankly. But
so do you think a lot of people look at membership sites and they sort of go, wow, that looks pretty easy. I know a little bit. I can just set up a membership site. People are going to join and I'm going to sit back and count all my money.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt that happens. Yeah, it has been happening, and I think unless you're really committed to it, a few will fail. And it's technology. The issue is that if you don't keep pace with technology and you're not really evolving all the time, then you just fall way behind the pack, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of really good quality platforms out there that people can be educated on. So you've got to think all the time about, is it value for money? You know, how much are we offering? What do we need to be doing? Do we need more narrated PowerPoints? Do we need more videos? Do we need more discussion articles? Do we need a couple of webinars, more podcasts?
Yeah.
You know, they're all the things that are a part of the platform. And that, you know, the secret is, how do we deliver quality CPD that people actually are getting something out of? And I can tell you that you know, we've tried many things, and as yet, I don't know that I could tell you what the secret to that formula is. I'm not sure anybody knows. But the one thing I do know for sure is you have to evolve, and it is a lot more difficult and a lot more time consuming than most people realize. While you'll be up there in Cairns enjoying your
The tropics.
stuffed turkey with leg ham,
Yeah.
I'll probably be working, because, as I said, you know, you just have to keep on feeding stuff into the system, otherwise it falls over.
Yeah, well, it's funny when we talk about memberships, and I said just before I press record that there's there's a lot of groups that are starting, and there's some that have been around for a number of years now, not just about clinical work or biomechanical, but it might be even in the business side of things. And some of it is very like cookie cutter type, where it's the same stuff that's just been regurgitated. There might be 3 or 4 different groups, and they're all saying exactly the same thing. So what do you feel is about your group, that, you know, the Bartol Clinical, that is a little bit unique? Is it you're constantly doing research and yourself, or reading
Yeah, well,
articles?
it is very much part of that. Sorry, I'm coughing. I'm on my third coffee for the day, so I'm probably dehydrated. But yeah, like, I think it's pretty much trying to figure out what your niche is. So for me, you know, if I have a skill set, and that's debatable, it would be in athletic footwear, because I've just been so embedded in athletic footwear for so long at quite a high level internationally. So I do have great exposure to things like the innovation, the R&D space, you know, lots of different areas. And right now is a really interesting time to be involved in athletic footwear, because, you know, Nike just completely threw a spanner in the works when they put out the Vaporfly 4%. It really turned everything on its head, and now we're seeing this massive boom in technology at every level of athletic footwear. So we have a strong focus on that, but there is a big crossover between that and sports injury. And, you know, all of my professional career, I've been involved in sports medicine. So,
Yeah.
and I sort of have a huge interest in that. But basically, for the first half of my day, so for the first 4 or 5 hours, I'm on Scopus, the online research portal, and I'm just going through all of the research papers that have come out on that particular morning, looking at what's going on. So, yeah, I think I would hope I'm reasonably across the research at, you know, at a number of different levels, from footwear to things like tendinopathy and the things that are of interest to people who are working in clinical sports medicine. That's really what we offer. And it's quite a diverse platform too. So, you know, someone like Peter Maliaris has got his website, but it's focused just on tendinopathy. So it only goes to tendinopathy. So we will talk about everything from footwear to the effect of placebo to does cortisone work for heel pain, you know, all sorts of different stuff. So we try very hard to make sure that twice a week we're putting out information that will make a difference to people's clinical practice. That's my goal. I want people to have information they can say, okay, I'm going to give that a go on Monday and see whether that's a better way for me to practice my profession. So that sounds a little bit cliched, but that's really what we do try to do.
Yeah, I think what's really important is when you said what the information you put out there is something that they can actually go and apply in their business. And I think that's what gets frustrating sometimes when you go to a conference and they might have a number of, you know, professionals or PhD guys getting up there and talking, and they'll present information, which some of it's really, really interesting. But then when you sit back and go, but how do I then apply that into my business? It actually, you sort of go, I can't apply that in my business because it's just not practical. I don't have 2.5 hours to actually go through all that.
Yeah, like that frustrates the crap out of me, to be quite honest. I mean, whilst I have huge interest in lactate levels in chicken legs,
Yeah.
can't really apply that to my clinical practice. So, and one of the other things that really frustrates me is when I read the research or listen to the research, and I've got, I give you an example of, if we look at heel pain, for example, and you've got a paper that's comparing injection of cortisone to injection of PRP. Well, for me, that's comparing two treatments that neither of them really work. So you're
Yeah.
comparing a treatment that doesn't work to a treatment that doesn't work to a clinician who needs something that they can apply to plantar heel pain. And I got to tell you, I find that massively frustrating when I read those sorts of papers, because it's just, why would you bother? It doesn't help us at all. And sometimes also we see papers where you have the same author presenting on the same topic a month apart, or publishing in a journal with completely opposing outcomes of the studies. It's like, holy cow, where's the clinical research? Where is the research that will actually help us as clinicians and help us to offer a better product to our clients, our patients, which is what we will want, and that product is getting them better.
So do you think a lot of the information that you present, that you give to your members, because I know when Howard Dannenberg, when I had him on, we were talking about certain things, and I asked him, "Oh, did you ever, I think, do research at a university?" And he said, "No, he didn't go off to a university and do all that. He did it in his own clinic, just with his own patients, and recorded his results, and then took his results and then shared his results with other people." And he had some people say, "Oh, where's all the scientific research to back up what you're saying?" And I'm pretty sure, but what he was saying is these are the results he got in his clinic. So therefore, when he was showing it to somebody, they could then apply exactly what he did in the clinic and try and get similar results.
Yeah, look, I think that's really interesting. I mean, the glaring gap is there's a lack of clinical research. So you can read all sorts of stuff on on theories, but what people aren't doing is they're not actually doing the research where they've got a decent cohort of subjects, and applying a particular intervention and asking the question, does it work or does it not work? That's what we're not getting. And that's what we as clinicians desperately need. We need to know, we need to understand what it works. Extracorporeal shockwave therapy, how does it work? Well, it appears it does work, but there's so many variants of it in terms of dosage, the waveform, all those sorts of things. And we're really not getting the information we need to be able to drill down and have this formula that we can apply. Clinical evidence is very important. I'm hope that I'm quite evidence-based, and I like to think that I am. But I think it is really, really important that we do have some of this more applied research to a clinical aspect, rather than esoteric things that aren't really going to make a difference to the way we practice our professions.
But do you think, which way do you think the practice is being steered towards? From like for me looking at it, there seems to be so much emphasis put on the person that goes and does the research at a university with PhDs, to then get invited to speak at different events, than the person that is doing stuff in their own clinic who hasn't gone off and done the PhD, and then sort of has these people with PhDs throwing knives at them when they post something online. And next minute they're diving on, where's your clinical research to back up this claim?
Yeah, look, I think that's definitely what we see in our profession at our conference. That I think probably there's a bit of a disregard of clinical acumen. So clinicians who have great experience and who are very up to date with the research, but also very up to date in terms of clinical practice, they're probably being edged out because they don't have a PhD. So there's this sort of cultural cringe that to be any good, you've got to have a PhD, which I'll go on record and say is complete and utter nonsense. That's just not the case at all.
Can you repeat that louder?
It's complete and utter nonsense. And to be honest, I've never really quite understood why people who have no desire to go into academia would do a PhD anyway. It's, to me, I don't know. It's, maybe we shouldn't go down that path, but
I think sometimes it's the wank value.
Well, you said that, not me.
Yeah, but
It's
it
your
is.
lips moving, not mine.
But it is like I know there's some people that have done a PhD. They're podiatrists. They've done a PhD in philosophy, but they walk around
Yep.
and they're doctor such and such. But the research had absolutely really nothing to do with podiatry.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Well, I got a mate who lives in Belgium, and he's a partner in RS Scan. You might that name may sound familiar, or RS Laboratories, and he's actually got 3 PhDs and a medical degree. But the PhDs he did one in biomechanics, he did one in mathematics, and he did another one in animal studies, I think. So they kind of all made sense in terms
Yeah,
of what he was trying to do as a master biomechanist, which he is, and then fold in his degree in medicine, and you've got a guy who has pretty much got a handle on anything you can throw at him. And he's one of those guys, when you talk to him, he's a lovely bloke, but he's one of those guys you talk to him and you just think to yourself, yep, this dude is working on an entirely different intellectual plane to me, and it's quite intimidating.
yeah, I've got friends like that. I have got a couple of friends that are just
Too bright.
yeah, they're nice people, but you're talking to them, and then they start talking, and you're there just going, I'm out of my depth here.
Yeah.
Just smile and wave.
Yeah. Well, Benno Nigg's a lot like that. I mean, Benno Nigg's become a very dear friend and a great mentor to me over the years. But he has this extremely disconcerting habit where when you ask him a question, there's a prolonged silence, and you think he obviously thinks I'm a complete dickhead. So, but in fact, he's just thinking about. He's composing his answer. But it's really disconcerting when you first meet him, because you just think, yeah, he obviously thinks I'm a complete fool, and that was the stupidest question he's ever heard, and he's just not going to answer me. So, but yeah, he's for a guy who's whatever he is, 83 or 84, man, he's got a mind like a steel trap. It's just unbelievable.
I always say there's no stupid questions, just stupid people. So,
That's true.
and to me, I think that the craziest people are the people who actually have a question and don't ask it. To have a question and not actually ask that question, like I said, there is no stupid question, because if you don't know the answer, the only way you'll find out is to ask the question.
Yeah, and that kind of gets back to our discussion about conferences too, doesn't it? That I think my observation is, the Q&A at the end of a paper at a conference now has really degenerated a bit, because I think people are just too scared to ask a question in case they get humiliated. And when I present, I take you. I mean, I always learn something from the questions, and in fact, I hate not having questions, because I figure that means that people have either been bored to tears or they haven't understood what I was talking about. So
Yeah.
for me, questions are super important, and I can't ever remember being asked a question where I thought, well, maybe once actually, but it wasn't at a podiatry conference. It was relating to barefoot running, and it was actually a stupid question
From a stupid person.
But that's another story. But yeah, so I think I think one of the most important purposes of a conference is, especially for the younger guys in the profession, that they everybody who is on the podium really should be thinking of themselves as a mentor to those people. It's their job to encourage them and to make sure they feel comfortable asking questions and interact with them as much as they possibly can. And I don't always see that.
I think it's true. I even on some of the social platforms, and somebody will pose a question, and then somebody will give them their answer, and then somebody else will give a different answer, and they're not opposing the views, but they're just different views on how to do something. And then you'll get the knob that just comes in from the side, who just all of a sudden will write 1,000-word response, full with references to research papers, just bagging the person that actually gave a really short answer. Yeah. And they've taken probably what they've said out of context. And all of a sudden you can see where everybody was communicating. When this one person comes in with the verbal diarrhea,
yeah,
everyone just shuts down. They're like, oh, I'm now too scared to actually have an opinion, because if I say something, is this person then going to get on my case? So everyone just shuts up.
Yeah, look, I think there's one particular platform where there's been a few serial offenders, and it was a particularly useful platform in the early days, but I don't go on it anymore, because for that exact reason, that there were 3, maybe 4 people who monopolized every discussion, and they really did humiliate people who might have had a different opinion. So, it was the old it was the old straw man argument or actually it was an ad hominem argument where it just got down to personal attacks. So these are people who do not value at all the context of a useful discussion / argument. I mean, arguments don't have to be heated. It's just simply it's a discussion of opposing opinions, and that's always useful.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. Attack the question or attack the answer, but don't attack the person. And sometimes I've seen some of these forums where it's a direct attack on the person, not their opinion. So to me, you can disagree with the person, but just argue the point, not argue about the person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does, it often descends into something quite personal, and that's never okay. I mean, whenever I get involved in a discussion on social media and that whole ad hominem side of things comes in, I just shut it down and don't get involved anymore.
Yeah, it's when the word dickhead comes out, you sort of go, okay, that's enough. Time to move on.
Yep. Yep. And social media has a very useful function. It's called the block function, which is very, very good.
But I found the same thing. Even when some people, I think on social platforms, I find it's not as bad sometimes, especially if people are using their proper names. So, at least if they're giving you a comment, you know exactly who it came from. Some of the issues I find sometimes is something like review platforms where you'll see reviews on different things, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, it doesn't matter what it is. And the person doesn't use their own name, but then can give the harshest sort of review. And you're going, well, if you really believe it, you should put your own name there. Stand behind those words.
I think that's an issue with reviews generally. And it's one of the reasons that I, as a general rule, I never read shoe reviews, because it's one person's subjective opinion on what may well be 18 to 24 months of extremely hard work.
Yeah.
And, the whole deal with athletic footwear is it's completely operator dependent. So what works for one person may not work for another person. That doesn't mean the product is bad. It simply means that it doesn't work for you. So I think that, to give a good or a bad review on athletic footwear is it's a task that it's a ship of fools, really. It's never going to actually mean anything, because it doesn't apply to all people. So why would you do it?
Oh, it's true though, because even if I think of my book, and you might have one person that say wrote a review in the UK and gives it 5 stars, but then you'll have another person might give it 1 star, but then you'll have someone in America say, "I didn't apply to us," but then you have somebody else in America saying that was the best book I read. So it's what they're thinking is, what they're thinking is, and how they're applying what they've read.
Best book ever written.
What was that?
We all know it's the best book ever written.
I know. I always say it's the second best book ever written. I just haven't written the best one yet.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay. I thought you might be humble, but I should have known better.
No. I gotta say it's the second best book ever written. I just haven't found the best one yet. But it has to be out there.
I've written several, don't you?
You have?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why mine's still second. It could be one of yours that might be the best.
No, my first one, The Foot and Leg in Sport, which is over 800 pages long, was basically designed as an alternative to an evening sedative. So basically,
it's about 200. That's about, what did you say, 800 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably about 600 pages too many for me.
I designed it as a reference. I honestly did design it as a reference text, so I never thought anybody would read the whole damn thing, and I'm sure nobody has. But I designed it because I was frustrated with, I'd read something and say, I don't know what that is. I need to find it, and I could never find it. So I tried to make this book like that, where if you read about something you didn't know what it was, you could go to that book and it would be in there. And I hope that it is in there. I'm sure I've missed a few things out, but that's why it's 800 pages long, and it took me over 3 years to write it.
So if people wanted to get a copy of that book, where do they get it from?
You can get all that stuff off Bartol Clinical. So there's a little shop within the website. So there's actually 4 or 5 books now. There's a couple of little fellas. So I've got that one, the comprehensive athletic footwear, the comprehensive guide's about 300-page long book on athletic footwear. That's also there. And then there's just a couple of really simple ones. One's called the Foot Owner's Manual. Thought we'd write a manual for a foot. And then there's another one called the Bone Collection, which is all about bone injury. So there's a few in there. So Yeah, and you can get them all off the website. It's very, very straightforward.
So where do you see Barthold Clinical going over the next couple of years? Along the same path that you're on at the moment, or do you see a brand? Yeah. Where do you see it?
No, it's really sort of recreating itself about every 6 months. So it's all about ease of access of educational information. So I think I'm very focused on, it's what we've learned from this COVID period is what you can do with virtual education. So you can do, so for example, we run Athletic Footwear, the masterclass, which is a 1 or 2 full day seminar that's been presented around the world. So we've done it to now over 600 people. We can't do it at the moment, so we recorded the whole thing on video, the entire thing on video, complete with workshops and all sorts of stuff, how to do different lacing techniques, for example. So it's over 12 and a half hours of content on the masterclass, and it's all delivered virtually. So it's just like you're there at the seminar, excepting you haven't had to pay $1,000 for accommodation. You haven't had to fly somewhere to do it. It's right there. You own it. You can watch it as many times as you like for the rest of your life, and you can do it in your own time. So we're going, well, that's a bit of a light bulb moment, isn't it? Because this is what people are telling us they actually want. It's cost effective. It costs $100, Tyson. Whereas if you attend it in person, it costs you $300 to attend it in person, because we have to borrow our lunches and yada yada yada. So it's super cost effective, and it's actually a better way. So I think we've got a big commitment to that style of education. We've got 2 courses now, the MSK course, which covers heel pain, shin pain, knee pain, and Achilles pain. That's been super successful. So that was modeled on like a semester at a university. So it's 70 hours of online education on those 4 MSK conditions. And you buy the course and it's yours forever. So you can revisit it as many times as you like. It's updated twice a year, so it's always completely current. So we got that one, we got the footwear one, and then next year we're going to release another one on the osteochondrosis. So we're going to look at everything from sesamoid insufficiency right up to Perthes disease, and we're going to go through all of the osteochondroses with all the current evidence. We'll do a video-based learning. There'll be a lot of stuff in there. So that's what's
this whole COVID thing then. So with the whole COVID and everyone jumping onto online platforms, do you think it's actually going to change the way that we educate ourselves in the future? I personally think things will never go back to the way that they were when it comes to CPD.
Yeah, no, I completely think it's going to change it. I think it's underlined what a few of us thought previously. So for me, I like going to conferences because I like to be able to have a beer with someone like you. I like to catch up with my mates, and it's a good networking opportunity. But the fact of the matter is that at a conference like, say, the National Podiatry Conference, about 20% or less than 20% of it is relevant to me. So I've probably spent, well, the podiatry conference is exorbitantly expensive for a start. So I've probably spent close to $3,000 to get to that conference, where I could easily produce a narrated PowerPoint with a video in one corner with the entire PowerPoint. I can do demonstrations, all sorts of stuff on a narrated PowerPoint, and I can get that out there and people can watch it. And you can do that for $10. So I think that people are really interested in more focused online education and how you get more bang for your bucks, because I think people are getting a bit choosy about their education delivery and how they get it. I mean, I can't wait to get back to live conferences. I do like them, but there are probably only 2 or 3 conferences I go to every 1 or 2 years that are fully focused on what I'm interested in. One's the Footwear Biomechanics meeting, which happens every 2nd year. The other one is a little conference I normally go to in the UK called Biomechanics Summer School. They're the most focused conferences I can go to. About 90% of the content is right up my alley. I love it. But the rest of it, you have to kind of, you go there to meet your mates, basically.
But I agree. I think when it all ends, whenever that is, when we're allowed to go to conferences, I think podiatrists will be a bit pickier and choosy in what they go to. When the association puts on a conference, and like you said, you look at Sunboot and you go, 20% of that actually applies to a clinic. 80% of it is just people presenting stuff we're not interested in, members on the association just rubbing shoulders with other people.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of, and they charge so much for it. So I think more smaller, specialized workshops and events will actually be more interesting to people to attend post-COVID.
Yeah, that's definitely my experience. I mean, we present stuff on athletic footwear. You're either into it or you're not, and if you're not, you don't come. If you are, then you love it. And we've, in terms of what we've done, we've presented to a lot of pods now. So there are obviously, quite a few people who are very interested to learn more about athletic footwear at the really pointy end of it. So to a level where you would probably be qualified to go and knock on the door of Brooks and say, here I am, I want a job because I know a shitload about athletic footwear. So that was our intention, to really upskill people to a much higher level than their peers. And I think that's personally what I'm interested in. If there's a conference on wound care, I'm never going to go to it because I don't do wound care. That's not to say it's good or bad. It's just to say it's never been a part of my practice because I see athletes. So maybe that makes me a very poorly rounded podiatrist, Tyson. I'm not really sure.
I don't think so. If you show me an ulcer, I'll just dry reach. So everyone knows that. Everyone in the world knows that I don't like ulcers. I've had people send me messages and they say, "Hey Tyson, how's that?" And by the way, I know you don't like ulcers, which I think is funny. But it's like when I do my say marketing workshops, you don't have to worry about what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about marketing.
Yeah.
When I do the 12-week podiatry business reboot, what are we going to be talking about? We're talking about podiatry. We're talking about business, working with your team. When you come and do that work, when you do that 12-week program, you know exactly what it is that you're doing. Whereas you'll see the national conferences and they'll have just pile of stuff on and there'll be maybe one little section that'll talk about business. And then I've asked them, why don't you have more business stuff on? Oh, because our members don't want that. When I talk to your members, they say, geez, I wish there was more business.
Yeah. I definitely come to one of your workshops. I mean, that's relevant to everybody. Especially if you're a principal of the practice, I mean, that's what you need. They inevitably they might have a half-hour session, or not even that, a 20-minute session on social media stuff at 7:30 in the morning over breakfast. So that gives you a bit of an idea of the importance of it. But I'm not sure that they've got that right, saying our members don't want that. I'd like to know where the information is coming from. It may well be that the PhD dudes who are on the conference committee don't want that because they're working in academia, so it means nothing to them.
Well, this is what somebody told me and I didn't realize, and it sort of made a bit more sense, that when you get your PhD, part of getting your PhD is to go out there and to present your findings at conferences. And then the whole role is this association will invite you, because then if you talk there, then you'll invite them to your conference because you're usually part of the conference group committee.
Yep.
And that's why the same people turn up at all the different conferences, because they're all rubbing each other's shoulders. And but the members, who are the people that are paying to go to the conference, are sort of getting ripped a little bit, I think.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what happens. And it also is a little bit frustrating that you'll quite often hear the same presenter giving the same paper, but 3 words have been changed in the title, because then it's completely new. It's then a completely new paper, and that is what happens.
Yeah.
I want to be fair and say that that's not just PhD, new PhD people. There are many podiatrists who are guilty of that as well. I have one great friend in the profession who, with great excitement, told me 2 years ago that he'd created this new presentation and that it was going to be good for 10 years. And I knew he wasn't joking.
Because it's funny, whenever I've presented somewhere or I do a talk, even if it's a Zoom talk, there might be, there's certain aspects of some of my talks where I'll use the same parts, like Doc Dockery, who was on the podcast early on, and he had a quote that said, learn like you're going to live forever, but live like you're going to die tomorrow.
Yeah. And
I open nearly all my presentations with that particular slide, that quote, and a picture of him holding a cigar and a martini, and with this Podiatry Legends shirt on. And I use that slide because to me it sums up everything that we basically, whether it's a business talk, whether it's a biomechanics or clinical, or you're sitting there listening to someone who's done their PhD, is learn like you're going to live forever, because we're going to be around for a long time, but you got to live like you might die tomorrow. So don't just stay focused on just learning. You've actually got to live as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think for people who are sort of on the lecture circuit, it is a responsibility to try to keep it as fresh as you possibly can. I mean, I get bored very easily. And so, I'm a great admirer of Bob Dylan. I mean, he never sings a song the same way twice, because he gets bored out of his brain when he's doing that. So,
yeah.
And people don't understand that. They want to go and hear, all along the Watchtower, and they say, well, how come it doesn't sound like the record? Because Bob doesn't march to that tune at all. I mean, he couldn't care. He doesn't care about the consumer. He cares about him. And but I think it's interesting because he does present different work every time he plays. And if you're just churning out the same stuff every single time you go to a conference, many times a year, people soon twig to that and they say, wait a minute, I've heard that presentation 5 times. I'm a bit over that now. So
yeah, I have this thing that usually when I get up on stage, sometimes I say, I've said it multiple times, I'm that excited, even I don't know what I'm going to say. And usually when I could have the same presentation, I could do it 5 times, and I'll guarantee 5 times it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I know the structure of what I want to follow, but every week I learn something different. I hear something different, and those thoughts are going around in your head all the time. And as you're up there presenting, something else just pops out.
Yeah. I love a quote. I was coming back from somewhere last year, maybe from England, I think, and I watched the doco Chernobyl. Have you seen that documentary?
No, I haven't.
It's literally like a train wreck. You're just sitting there thinking, I can't believe what I'm watching here. But right at the end, if you blinked, you'd miss it. Right at the end, there's a quote. So Valery Legasov is the guy who blew the whistle, and everybody just complete cover up. So it was an absolute catastrophe. He blew the whistle, and eventually he died of radiation sickness. But the quote at the end is I'll paraphrase it because I can't remember it off by heart, but I use it often. But he basically said, one of the great problems with scientists is that they overestimate the public interest in what they've got to say. In other words, what he was saying is, I can tell you scientifically that this disaster is going to kill millions of people, but the powers that be aren't interested in the science. And there's a very interesting parallel with what's going on in the USA right now with certain administrations who could not care less about the science. And we've seen what's unfolding there in the wealthiest nation in the world. I just look at it and wonder.
Well, yeah, I don't know. The world is a mess.
Definitely been an interesting year, that's for sure.
Oh, hasn't it? What? It must say it has been interesting, and we've been fortunate. I must say, where we live in the state of Queensland has probably been one of the safest places in the world. Australia in general has been one of the safest. It's been like one of the safest countries in the world, even though we've had the odd outbreak in Victoria. What's happening, say, in Sydney at the moment. But in general, I think Australia's been really, really safe. So it's hard to comprehend the United States and the UK and other things that have actually gone on. Yeah. But hopefully, another 12 months, 2 years, we look back and we go, we all learned something from that. Let's not eat bats. Let's move on.
I think it's systems of communication are the answer, Tyson. We're talking on a communication platform with Podiatry Legends, and I think this is the thing that I really admire about the way Australia's handled it. And I'm in Adelaide, and Adelaide had a scare a few weeks ago, but man, did they bring the shutters down big time?
Didn't they?
Bang! This is what's going to happen right now, and it shut it down in a heartbeat. I think in the USA it's very difficult because of their political system with governors not talking to federal and state don't talk to each other, and so it's impossible to get a handle on it. And it's probably the same in the UK with Boris trying to do it all. But
did you realise that in Australia, prior to COVID, because I didn't understand how much power our state premiers wield? I knew that. I knew their position, but I didn't know how powerful they were.
Yeah, no, I didn't understand that at all. I mean, basically, they can and have told the Prime Minister go and get stuff. They were going to do it their way. Yeah,
they can just close the state border, and it doesn't matter what the federal government says. They can just go, bad luck, I'm the Premier, we've made this decision, suck it.
Yep. Well, Mark McGowan, West Australian, is a great example of that, isn't he? He won't let anybody into WA.
Yeah,
they might as well just secede now while they've got the chance and create a new country.
Yeah, but everyone I know, when I mentioned about what's happened with borders closing and how the Premier can just stand there and say the Prime Minister to his face, tough, we're not letting you in. Or you're the president, you're the Prime Minister. Yeah, you can come to Queensland, but you've got to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And everyone just goes, yeah, did not realise how much power premiers have, which I think in Australia too, because we're big states, yeah, we've been able to keep everyone separated a little bit easier too.
Yeah, there's some distinct benefits in, as New Zealand will attest as well. There's some benefits in being on an island. You have a bit more control.
Yeah, definitely. So, Simon, before we finish up, have you got any final advice on it? Because with Barthold Clinical, that was like, I wanted people to understand what you're doing there, and I think it's a really, really important educational platform for podiatrists. And it's, like you say, $16 a month. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It's almost free.
Yeah. Yep.
Which
Yeah.
no wonder you have 1,000 people in there.
Works out about 49 cents a day for those that want to do the calculation. So
well, my group is, I've got my shirt on at the moment, the Podiatry Business Spartans. How cool are these shirts?
It's very nice. Very nice shirt.
But that's an invitation only. So invitation only group. Yeah. So, because I'm trying to get, I want the group to be like-minded people who just aren't going to stir up anybody. You don't want anybody in there that's going to cause problems. So
this is like the Brisbane Lions philosophy: no dickheads, basically.
Yeah, like the All Blacks, they have a no dickhead policy.
Yeah. So, it's a good policy to have, actually, especially in a sports team.
Well, the part with it all too, it's more like I set up the group because I love educating people. I love teaching people stuff. I love the business side of podiatry, and I don't want the group to be big. I want it to stay small. I want people to enjoy being part of that group. But to get into the group, you've got to do the 12-week reboot anyway. And then it's from the reboot that I'll work out whether I think you'll be good as one of the Podiatry Business Spartans, and we just take it from there.
Yeah, look, I think you and I are quite like-minded in. I mean, I get a real kick out of the education side of things. I mean, there's a few other strings to the bow, but the thing I love more than anything is Barthold Clinical and working on it. I've been working on a discussion paper this morning that I've just finished. And I derive great satisfaction out of that, because I know it was actually about really interesting paper about looking at MRI findings in asymptomatic marathon runners. And it was interesting because just lurking below the surface are these things that if you just make an error in training, bang, they'll pop up because they're all there.
Yeah.
You know, bone marrow edema, evidence of tendinopathy, they're all there on MRI, but in asymptomatic runners. So you just need this one little error and bang, you're in trouble. So it's a very interesting paper, but that's clinically applicable because our role is to educate our patients. Our role is to try to figure out training routines for them. That's what we should be doing as sports medicine practitioners. But yeah, so I think if there's one little tip for people who want to get involved in online education, is you definitely have to be passionate, as you well know.
Yeah.
You definitely have to have a vision for what you want to do. And if you just want to be churning out the same old, well, then you won't really stand out too much, I think. And also just beware, you're not going to be able to do it after work or on the weekends. It's more than a full-time job. It takes a lot of effort.
It's damn fun though.
It is damn fun, yeah.
It is.
It's really good fun, and it's very satisfying. I mean, I love actually producing this stuff, and I love it when people give me feedback that it's been valuable to them. We don't get too many people telling us it's crap product. Actually, we really don't get anybody doing that. So we must be doing something right. So hopefully,
I think that's the main thing. When you're getting positive feedback from people, I'm yet to have anyone do the 12-week reboot that's turned around at the end and gone, yeah, no, that was rubbish. Can I have my money back?
Yeah.
They all just say that was so much better than I thought it was going to be. So, and I think that's what keeps you doing it too. And like you said, you refine it. So when I did the first group compared to the last group, it's slowly adapted and changed. And when the next group kicks off in January, it's going to be slightly different again. So it's always evolving.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the masterclass, I first presented the masterclass in Ghent in Belgium in 2017, so not that long ago. And the one that we've just video recorded, which is the latest iteration, is completely rewritten. It's about 85% new content, because footwear hasn't stood still. You know, it's changed a lot in 3 years. And so if I was just trotting out what was going on in 2017, it just wouldn't make sense to me, because it wouldn't be the current snapshot of what's going on in the world of athletic footwear.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So, Simon, I want to thank you once again for coming on Podiatry Legends podcast, sharing your wisdom and knowledge. Hopefully some podiatrists coming through who are listening to this take note of what you said.
Thank you very much for having me again, Tyson. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'd love to be up there in beautiful far north Queensland, but it's a bit hot and sticky up there at the moment, so I'll wait until it cools down a bit.
It's hot. It's it's hot. It's definitely hot at the moment. But yeah, when you get back at Port Douglas, let us know, and we will definitely catch up again.
Will do. Thank you so much again, and have a great Christmas to you and everybody, or whatever you're celebrating. Happy Hanukkah. Anything you happen to be celebrating this time of year, I hope you have a nice break and have a good rest.
Okay, I'll talk to you again soon.
Good on you, mate. Thanks.
Hang on a sec. I just